We've made many advances in life-saving technology. However, could it get to a point ever where we discover the key to immortality? Now that is a positively silly thought, but one that man, in the case of M. Vladimir by Edgar Allan Poe, is more than willing to seek. This story is intended for a older audience. I've always been a man of science. I never believed there was a god in the sky who would grant me any prayers that I said. I never believed that there was such a thing as magic that could heal us. I was a man of medicine, of math, of chemistry. I was a man of logic and reason. However, what I witnessed so many years ago, I still can't understand it. Even in scientific terms, it's impossible. You see, many years ago, an old colleague of mine, Mr. M. Vladimir, was dying. He was struck with a terminal illness of which there was no cure. I asked him if I could look over his body, for research purposes, of course. He agreed, so long as nothing drastic was done. However, 6 months before his death, I read an article somewhere that a man who died was somehow brought back through hypnosis. Now that, I assured myself, was bullocks. There's no such thing as magic or God or anything of that nature. Now, medicine, I believe in, and there's no medicine I know of capable of this. And you're telling me that the brain, with just a slight trick of it, can bring us back to life? How we have fallen as humans. Nonetheless, curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to practice this on Mr. M. Vladimir. Come the day of his death, or a few hours before, I asked him, Mr. Vladimir, I will try something a little bit strange, if that's all right with you. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I'm 1 foot in the grave already. Before he died, I pulled out a watch and hypnotized him. I told him that he would fall into a deep slumber and only awake when I snapped my fingers. He was now asleep. I had my assistants examine him, and they confirmed to me that he was dead. There was no pulse, he was cold, there was no breath. He was, by all terms, dead, which is what made the next part so much more terrifying. I asked him, Mr. Vladimir, can you hear me? He opened his eyes. Yes. Leave me alone. I wish to rest. Very well, sir. As you were. He closed his eyes. And I was shocked. How could this be? I quickly cut him open and saw that all of his organs were not working. There was no pulse, no heartbeat, nothing. How could this be? Stitched him back together and examined him for the next few weeks. We'd ask him time and time again if he could hear us, if he could do anything. Sadly, he was not able to move his body. He was only able to respond, could move his head a little bit, but the rest of him, stiff as a board. One day, when I decided that enough was enough and I didn't want to see this sickly abomination anymore. I told my assistants that I would wake Mr. Vladimir. However, they argued if there was to be any legal repercussions, because even though he was, by all accounts, dead, he still responded. He still shared his opinions, everything. So, was he truly dead? Perhaps we had discovered immortality, and were we to wake him up now, it might be murder. I decided that I would not care the outcome. If I were to go to jail, so be it. A creature like this should not exist. So I pulled out the watch and rocked it back slowly. I asked Mr. Vladimir one more time. Can you hear me? Yes. Let me sleep. I do not wish to be disturbed. I snapped my fingers. He screamed back in agony. Your blood and pus pouring out of every orifice of his, even this scar from which I made the incision. He eventually degraded into a puddle on top of his bed. All that was left of him was gooey remains. No bones, no brains, nothing but liquid. I recoiled back in fear. Of all my days as a scientist, I'd seen many horrific things, but I could explain them all. They were all natural things, but this was unnatural. It was something that I could not explain nor comprehend, even to this day. And to anyone listening to this story, let me tell you, as a man who experienced this firsthand, don't play with the dead.